phone if I hadn't opened it.
Well, today's the 28th, but these are comics for
I got it. I know. I got it.
the 19th.
I got it.
Okay.
All right, and I got the right distance from the microphone. Everything's good.
Yeah, you sound good.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah, you can't move around a lot because it's not going to pick you up. Because if you just turn your head away to the side, it starts to not pick you up.
I understand.
Okay.
I understand. Yep.
So no bobbing around.
I know.
Okay. All right. You got the intro ready?
I'm ready. Dude, I've had 13 hours of driving to think about this.
Yeah. All right. Counting down. 3, 2, 1.
What is up? This is the 6 Month Behind podcast for the week of 12/19/16, where we discuss all the comics in the Marvel Unlimited app. I'm Pat.
And I am Sean.
And have a Merry Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah and a Happy New Year's to everyone. How you doing, my man?
Merry Christmas. I'm all right, man. We're coming to you a little late because of the holidays, but we're doing good.
We're actually recording this on 12/28/16. So it's like 3 days after Christmas and 3 days before New Year's. So there you go. We, I was thinking, I had a car ride home today to think about this. I was thinking about what total geeks we are and everything that we've done like for Christmas. Mm-hmm. Okay. And you can't hide the fact that you're a geek. I stopped by Bob's today, picked up Civil War #8, read it.
Okay.
I downloaded the conclusion. Oh, Bob's doing great, man. But Bob is Bob. Have you you go in, Bob's never laughing. Mm-hmm. Bob's never crying. Mm-hmm. Bob's never up. Bob's never down. Bob's just Bob. You know, he's just one of those people, man. Yeah. He's Bob.
He's like a constant flowing river.
Yes. He's just Bob. Dude, the building could be on fire. He'd like, hey, how you doing?
What's up, man? Got Civil War #8 for you.
Yeah, I got it right here. Yeah. I need Unworthy Thor #2. Yeah, I got it right over there on the shelf. Yeah. So anyway, we're talking, I got Unworthy Thor. He was like, oh yeah, Jason Aaron was in here on Christmas Eve too.
I'm sure he was.
You know why?
I'm sure he was.
Because he's in town and he's a geek. Because it's what geeks do. So what do you and I do for Christmas? You saw Rogue One. I saw Rogue One. I saw Doctor Strange. We both got new iPhones in the last few weeks. You built a new computer. I got like a new microphone. Why? You can't hide being who we are. You just can't. I mean, dude, it's who we are. We're geeks.
Yeah, it is. And I embraced that years ago. I just went, you know what? I'm a nerd. I like being a nerd. I'm going to be a nerd.
There you go. You didn't even get a new computer. You built your own computer.
Yeah. I bought the parts and put them together.
Yes.
So some great frustration as I spent an entire Monday on it, but that's a story for another time.
Yeah, I was getting these texts. I'm afraid at some point there was going to be like, person starts shooting up a Best Buy, and I thought, yeah, it's going to be bad.
No, everyone who works at Best Buy is a trash fire.
They're not the brightest bulbs in the building. No, they're just.
Did I tell you exactly what happened?
I know you all you wanted was a Windows 10 on a USB drive, and it took you like 2 hours and a lot of browbeating to get it.
Yeah, I finally went to one of the because all they had were the 32-bit Windows 10 32-bit operating system. Well, one of the guys said, well, we don't stock the 64. And I'm like, that's insane. You're Best Buy. In an attempt of desperation, go to one of the Geek Squad guys. He's like, yeah, man, got it right here. And what I did is earlier in the day, I called and said, do you have it on the USB stick? Because I don't have a disk drive. Haven't had a disk drive in 5 years. They said, no. I said, can you check for me? I said, okay. No, we don't have it. We just have the disc. Okay. So I bought a $40 disc optical drive just cause and the Windows disc. I get home, I install the DVD drive in the computer. Open the Windows thing, it's the USB stick.
funny. Oh, good gosh, man.
All I wanted to do was strangle the life out of a Best Buy employee.
And all the while, I'm getting text during this whole like 2 or 3 hours, and I'm thinking one of these days he's going to snap and he's just going to shoot up a Best Buy. That's just
Nah.
That's going to be how this goes.
Listen, if I ever snap and decide to shoot up somewhere, it's not going to be a Best Buy. I'm not going to go out like that.
Yeah, there you go. Anyway. The website is www.6sixmonthsbehind.com. The email is
6 months behind at gmail.com.
Yes, thank you. I thought I said website again. We do spoilers on the show. We're about to talk Civil War. We're right in the middle of Civil War. As I said, I picked up number 8 today, so I know how it ends. We really talk about spoilers. We're going to dive right into Civil War number 2, Civil War X-Men in a moment. Civil War Ulysses. We don't usually talk about Infinite Comics. That was a very good Infinite comic. So if you're not into spoilers, go away now, come back, maybe listen to last week's podcast or, read the books, then come back and listen to us. We'll still be here, as we always say. So without further ado, Civil War number 2. What did you think of it?
I enjoyed it. Art's magnificent. But mostly, I'm liking this story. So you've basically got, Tony Stark breaks into New Attilan and kidnaps Ulysses. Tony doesn't feel like he's done anything wrong here, but what he's actually done is violate the sovereignty of a state. I guess that's what New Attilan is.
Yes.
And steal one of its citizens. And he's basically in the basement of Stark Tower interrogating him and lightly torturing him.
Yes.
And eventually the Captain Marvel and the Avengers and the Inhumans show up and they're like, dude, you can't, what are you doing? While they're having this argument, Ulysses has a vision of the Hulk destroying everyone. Also, it's a very naked Hulk. I don't know if you're looking at that panel. It's a very
I'm not
naked,
there yet, but
it's
I'm
a
getting
very naked Hulk. I don't know why the Hulk's naked, but he is. Apparently, the Hulk in Ulysses' vision, the Hulk goes on a naked rampage and kills everyone.
That is a naked Hulk. Yes, that is a naked Hulk. Yep.
And we end with Bruce finding Bruce Banner and saying, "Hey, we need to talk." So here's the deal. Tony Stark is melting down. If you don't remember from the last issue, Rhodey's dead. And he's been dealing with some stuff anyway. Tony has. And he's just having an absolute meltdown. And to me, it seems like he's melting down into villainy.
He's not. He's not, but, and I don't remember how much we talked about this after issue 1, but a lot of this is the morality of how much do the ends justify the means. And what he's doing, you said he was torturing a kid. Kind of was, really was. But what he was doing was trying to get reactions out of Ulysses to find out how his powers work. And he was giving him, he was drawing reactions out of him to see how his mind worked so he could understand how he saw the visions, because the visions are part of his mind. So Tony wants to understand how his mind works. And he's kind of on the verge of a breakthrough before everybody breaks in.
Sure, but they even tell him, listen, if you had gone through proper channels and said, hey, can we do some research on the kid? He wouldn't have had to kidnap him.
I understand, but this is a matter of do the ends justify the means? I was watching, I happened to catch the end of MacArthur the other day. And MacArthur was, your lack of history at times.
Are you talking about General MacArthur?
Yes, General MacArthur, the movie MacArthur. Okay. MacArthur's it's a great movie about General MacArthur.
I didn't know if it was a TV show or a movie about General MacArthur. I didn't know.
It was a movie about General MacArthur.
I'm familiar with General. Okay, I'm familiar with him.
And at the end of his service, he was fighting in the Korean War. He was in charge of all the Allied forces in the Korean War.
Right. Yeah.
And China attacked Korea. And as all generals have throughout all of military history, he gave the very natural response of attacking the force who was attacking him, which was China. And he was told not to do so. And at one point he asked, okay, can I attack the bridges they're coming across? The response from Washington was, well, you can attack your side of the bridges. And he's sitting there and he's like, in all my years, I don't understand how I'm supposed to attack half a bridge. I'm supposed to blow up half a bridge. I'm supposed to blow up my side of the bridge, but not China's half the bridge. And these are the moral questions that you start asking yourself. How do you do these things? And Tony wants to do this. And as we get further into this, Carol wants to do this. She wants to control the future with this kid, but not really understand how the kid works. And not know if every future is absolutely certain.
Right. Well, and that brings me to another thing is, listen, you talk about ends justifying means. Tony Stark kidnapped an 18-year-old kid out of his own bed in the middle of the night. I think he could have gone about it a little better. But Carol is using the kid to anticipate potential problems in the future and stop them before they happen, and that's its own moral quandary.
Yes.
So both of them are on this line. Their intentions are good, but it leads them to do things that are morally questionable, and that makes them villains. I mean, I've talked before about how, like Magneto, don't see themselves as villains.
Yes.
They see themselves as pragmatists, doing what's right because they doing what they do because they believe it's right. Because it's the right thing to do, despite what everyone else thinks.
Right. Magneto has never seen himself as a villain. He sees himself as a savior. He sees himself the same as Charles Xavier. They're simply going about they're simply going about the ends by different means.
Yes. I mean, there's times where you read the X-Men and you could make the case that maybe Charles Xavier was a little out there.
Yeah.
Maybe his goals and his actions to achieve those goals were not necessarily morally upstanding.
He put children into a war zone at times.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
So
he trained teenagers to be soldiers.
So
he opened a school to funnel into military operations.
Yes.
Yeah. So, it all comes back to, I guess it's all degrees of gray.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Right. Had Tony Stark gone to the Ultimates and the Inhumans and said, Can I look at his brain? Can we hook him up to a thing and see what happens? They probably would have let him, but instead he's off kilter and stole the kid out of his bed in the middle of the night.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, let's go on and talk about Civil War Ulysses Infinite Comic #1, because that's kind of what Karnak does, and that was. Did you read this?
Yeah, I did.
We usually don't discuss Infinite Comics because they're kind of their own. They don't exist in the 616 universe, and
typically
no, and they're kind of their own little corner of the Marvel world. And just to be honest, we have so many comics to cover every week that
we just
don't have time. So when things spin out, we just got to kind of kick some things overboard. So a lot of times we just kick Infinite Comics overboard. But I happened to read this, and it was really good, and it tied in well. So in this book, and I don't even have it queued up, I'm just going to do it from memory. Medusa is taking two of the new Inhumans, whose name I don't remember, and Ulysses to Karnak to basically have their powers tested. And even she doesn't land close to the Tower of Wisdom. I mean, even she lands like a mile away and then walks in. And they walk up, and they're all kind of making fun of Karnak. They're like, who's this dude? And, why is he so special? And even Medusa is kind of hesitant to make fun of or be around Karnak there at the Tower of Wisdom. And she pays him respect, and his response isn't "Thank you, my queen." His response is, "I owe you respect because you're the queen, and that's why I respect you." It's like, hey, I have to respect you, so I do, And at that point, the kids, think that this guy's standing there with no power, no nothing, and they're just going to stomp him real quick. And he very quickly stomps the first two kids. And at that point, he's left with Ulysses, and Ulysses is like, all right, what are we going to do? And Karnak's like, well, you're going to come with me, and turns around, walks off. And Ulysses is like, well, all right, peace out, and starts following him. And Medusa's left standing there saying, maybe this wasn't a good idea. Maybe I've had better ideas with Ulysses. And it was really entertaining because you've got to look at Karnak, you got to look at Medusa and Karnak's relationship, and you understand how, when this whole thing begins, how young and naive Ulysses is in this process. And I there are times I enjoy having foreknowledge as to where it's going, and knowing where it ends. It's entertaining seeing where it begins and then knowing where he ends up at. So it's pretty cool.
Okay. So read that Civil War Ulysses Infinite comic and just keep it in mind as the series goes on.
Yeah, it's a good book. I really enjoyed it. I don't usually read those Infinite comics, but I think I texted you, and I think you read it also, and I thought it was a good read.
Yeah, it was a quick read, but you got a little insight into Ulysses and Karnak's training, and what was it? One of four, I think. Is she one of four? Something like that. I didn't even look.
Yeah, it's something like that. One of four. Anyway, on to Civil War X-Men #1.
Hey, you know how last week we talked about they did these Civil War books and then they weren't Civil War books?
Yes.
Did here. This isn't really a Civil War book. It's good.
It kind of is, and it kind of isn't.
I mean, it deals with some of the things from Civil War, but I don't know that I'd call it a Civil War book.
A lot of these books tie into the event that happened with the Celestial Destroyer, which is what this does. And in the case of this book, Magneto and his Uncanny X-Men, which is what his team is, just don't trust the Inhumans with the power that Ulysses has.
Well, they don't trust the Inhumans at all, but yeah.
Well, they don't trust them at all, and they certainly don't trust them with a weapon like Ulysses. And in Magneto's mind, Ulysses is a weapon, and he's the ultimate weapon.
Right.
And
but to get, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Well, I was going to give you a quick rundown. We're in Dubai, and the Terrigen Mist cloud is about to roll over the city. So these very rich mutants have gathered in this tower that has these seals to it. Not the animals, like the building is sealed. So they won't be affected by the Terrigen Mist. Well, they've got all the high society people there, but they've left all the mutants in the city who are too poor for them to care about. He undoes the whatever the hermetic seal is, lets all the other mutants in the city that they can find into the tower, and says, okay, well, once they're all in here, I'll reseal the building and we can all ride this out. And everyone will be saved, not just you rich buttholes. That's when some Sentinels show up, start shooting the place up, and then you have Storm's team of X-Men show up to save the day. Now, how did Storm's team know to be there? Ulysses. Magneto and his whole team were supposed to die in the Terrigen Mists, but because of Ulysses, Storm showed up and was able to use her weather powers to keep the cloud at bay for a little while. They deal with the Sentinels, and then they have a discussion, which is I think a lot of this is leading up to the Inhumans versus X-Men war.
Yes, it's all leading to AVX or IVX, excuse me.
Right. So there's this rift between Magneto's X-Men and Storm's X-Men, which I think is the ground floor of that, or at least it's the beginnings of that. But Magneto has a little speech that lays out the impasse between the mutants and the Inhumans. Life for one race means death for another, and that their existence is diametrically opposed. You literally can't have one without the other.
Right.
Or one can't live while the other exists, is what I mean. So yeah, I can understand why Magneto feels that way. I don't think he necessarily has to. This is him making a moral choice, like we were just discussing. But at the same time, I think you're going to have, when he says this, he's not wrong. The Terrigen Mist means life for the Inhumans. It makes them who they are, but it kills the mutants. They worship the Terrigen Mists. How can they work with a group of people who worship what kills mutants?
Understand, I don't. I'm going to say this, and I don't know if it's been specifically spelled out anywhere in the comics, but the reason that Beast is with the Inhumans is to find a solution for the disease that's killing the mutants.
Yeah.
That's why he's with the Inhumans, to find a solution to this. And at this point, they're 9 months in, and he hasn't found anything.
He's not going to. At least I don't think so.
Maybe not. We'll see.
But you start drawing a dividing line, which is what Magneto did in this book. He basically said, "Here's the line. Ulysses is a weapon for them. It can, it helps them. It gives them a great advantage over us in terms of survival, because that's, excuse me, that's Magneto's whole thing is, survival of the fittest. At one point in time, the mutants were that, so no need for humans anymore.
I'd have to. Go ahead.
Scene at the end where Nightcrawler shows up in Magneto's base in the Savage Land and says, listen, I think you're right, and I want to work with you.
I'd have to do the math.
What math? But
you go straight from this book to Death of X to IVX.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nonstop, and it begins before Civil War ends, because Civil War drug out so long.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a publishing issue.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we're go ahead.
But that's the whole story that they're building in this book, is that, the Inhumans and the mutants are going to clash. They can't do anything but that. They were always going to clash, especially with the Terrigen Mists now. Also, I really like Nightcrawler's new costume, just as an aside.
Dude, the art in this book was amazing. We were discussing before we started recording. It was great.
Yeah. Who did you say the artist was?
I've closed the book.
Andrea Briccardo.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't. Marvel is using so many artists that I'm not familiar with, but I like it because they're really good.
They are good, and they have people who are doing specific styles, and I really like this style of artist. It's really good.
Yeah, it's I wouldn't call it hyper realistic, but it's, they're going for that. It's not stylized. They're going for, it's meant to look not real, but not.
Well,
It's not like it's not like Hellcat, which we'll talk about later.
Greg Land draws the regular Uncanny X-Men book, and this is a lot like his style. I don't know if they picked an artist of his style to draw this in particular, but this is a lot like his style. That's an amazing cover. There's a bunch of alternate covers for this that look good also.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to check out our website, we have all the alternate covers there.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, I didn't feel like it was really a Civil War book, this X-Men, but it was pretty good.
Yeah, it was good, and I like where it's going.
Me too. Moving on to our Spider-Man books this week. That's all of our Civil War books. Spidey number 7. Some thieves steal vibranium, a bunch of vibranium. Spider-Man and Black Panther team up and deal with it. Moving on to Amazing Spider-Man number 14.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed this book this week.
Yeah.
Mainly,
Spidey?
Yes.
Okay.
Mainly because of the way that the Black Panther was
portrayed.
And thank you. That was the word I was looking for in this book. Whoever did it really did a good job with him. And it really, they really did a good job with T'Challa in this book. And I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a bad book. I was skipping over it kind of because we got other things to talk about, and there's not a ton of stuff to talk about it with this book. I mean, the plot is just that. Thieves steal vibranium. Black Panther and Spider-Man team up to deal with it.
Yeah. So somebody stole vibranium. They team up to steal it or to get it back. There you go. Bada bing, bada boom.
Right. But the art's good. The writing's good. Yeah, it's a solid Spider-Man book.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. And it's, yeah. Usually I give it 2 thumbs down, but I enjoyed it this week.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you liked it finally.
Yeah.
7 issues in, you think you'd find something you like about it.
Yeah. There you
go. Let's see. Oh yeah, Amazing Spider-Man number 14. So we're dealing with this Regent fellow. And in this book, he's decided to finally go out in the open, and he's just capturing Avengers and superpowered people willy-nilly. He snatches up Miss Marvel on the first page. He grabs Nova. He grabs Captain America, not Steve Rogers, but
Sam Wilson.
Sam Wilson, thank you. I wanted to say Steve Wilson, and that's not it. Thor, Vision. He's snatching up all the Avengers, and that's really about it. He's just grabbing folks.
Peter Parker and Tony Stark go see Miles Morales' parents and have a very awkward conversation. And Mary Jane go to Miles Morales' parents and have a very awkward conversation with them, where they're slinging a lot of BS. And yeah, it's very awkward for everybody, including Mary Jane and Peter Parker.
Right. Yeah. And they're trying to figure out what to do about Regent, and they don't know who he is yet. They haven't figured that out. Harry Osborn knows. In fact, Harry Osborn goes to, what is it? Empire Unlimited? Yeah.
Yes.
And confronts the guy and says, hey, by the way, I know who you are and I know what you're doing. And he sends a distress signal to Spider-Man, and that's how they find out where he is. So the book, at the end of the book, you've got Spider-Man and Iron Man going toe to toe with Regent, but he's now absorbed so many powers of other superheroes that they can't possibly beat him.
Yeah, he stomps them both.
Yeah, he stomps them, and that's the end of the book.
And by the way, there's a page where Aunt May is sick again.
Yes, she's sick, and yeah,
coughing up blood or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That just kind of came out of left field. I don't know what that's about. I guess we'll find out here shortly. She's got lung cancer.
She'll probably die for like the 4th time. I don't know.
Yeah. Eventually that woman's got to die.
Maybe she'll die and they'll bring her back as what's the actress in the latest movie?
Marissa Tomei.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hot Aunt May. Yeah,
thank you. Hot Aunt May. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. They're going to bring her back as Hot Aunt May. I hope not. That'd just be it. I can deal with it.
It's just wrong. It's just wrong.
It's really weird. It's super weird. And I can deal with it for the movie. I can deal with it.
Yeah, not it's just wrong. Books. Yeah.
Yeah. Sally Field and Martin Sheen as Uncle Ben and Aunt May were probably the best casting for that role I've ever seen.
I tell you what, we'll come back to what I was going to talk about.
Oh, okay. What were we going to talk about?
I'm sending you a message. On to Spider-Gwen number 9.
Okay. Hang on, I got to refer to my notes here and pull the book up. Oh, right. Yeah, we'll talk about that at the end of the.
Well, we hit the Star Wars section. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So Spider-Gwen number 9.
Go ahead.
So during the Spider-Woman event that she was a part of, she lost her superpowers. She lost her spider powers, but she gained this device that if she presses it, she'll gain her powers back for a short time. So now she's having this existential crisis of, does she want to continue being Spider-Woman? How long can she continue to be Spider-Woman? Does she, is this an opportunity for her to go back to her old life? And is that what she wants to do? Or she's not sure. This is the classic Peter Parker throws the suit in the garbage can and isn't Spider-Man for a while. In the whole thing, you get her inner monologue through this whole thing, and it's basically her running around with her friends for once because she doesn't have to be Spider-Woman. She can just be she could just be Gwen Stacy. And the whole thing is, with great power comes great responsibility. But if you no longer have that power, it's no longer your responsibility, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Well, she decides that she doesn't like that answer and hits the button and powers up as Spider-Woman and knocks out some thugs. One of which is Frank Castle, who apparently has gone rogue. Gwen Stacy has decided to continue being Spider-Woman. Hooray.
Well, it's a little more complicated than that, because what happened is after the whole, I want to say Spider-Verse thing, that's not what it was. Spider-Woman event. She's a hero because she was with Captain America or whatever Earth 65's Captain America is. And she's now a hero. She's gone from being a villain to being a hero. And Frank Castle still wants to prosecute her, but she's so popular and she's such a hero that she can't be prosecuted at this point. And the police are saying, Frank, you got to get over it. You have to. And not only does Frank know that she's Spider-Gwen, he knows that she's Gwen Stacy. And he's out to get not only Spider-Woman, but Gwen Stacy. And that's who he happens to find in the bar is Gwen Stacy. And, he's ready to thump her. And she has to defend herself, and it all goes south from there.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's going to lead to a big conflict sooner or later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, the book's really good. Robbie Rodriguez is doing the art. It's fantastic art. The art in this book has been killer since the beginning. Yeah, man, I really like this. I really like this Gwen Stacy as Spider-Woman thing.
Yeah.
Liked her since they introduced the character in Spider-Verse. They keep fleshing out her backstory in Earth 65, which is where she's from. It's good, man. I'm digging it.
Yes, it is good. It is.
Let's see.
We don't have any
Go ahead.
Avengers book this week. Our notes say X-Men, and that brings us to Uncanny X-Men number 8. Now,
go ahead and give us a synopsis.
Let me stop you. I enjoyed this book. I do. Greg Land is drawing it. You know, I said earlier, I'm a big fan of Greg Land. Actually, Ken Lashley filled in on this issue. Colin Bunn is writing it. I have no idea what happened in this book. I read it. I went back and scanned it this afternoon. I'm scanning it now. I still don't understand what happened in this book.
It's this whole Apocalypse War thing event storyline that's going on.
I understand, but
it doesn't make any sense.
Psylocke was captured. Phantom X, she's trying to get away. Phantom X captured her again. Phantom X was sent there by Magneto, and Magneto is apparently in league with Apocalypse. Is that what I'm understanding?
I guess. I don't know.
If anybody knows, send me an email, because that's what I'm understanding.
Yeah, that's how I interpreted it too, and that's what you're led to believe. Also, I don't know who the big guy in the suit is with the red skull. It's not the Red Skull, but he's
that's one of Apocalypse.
This is one of his horsemen.
That's one of his horsemen. I want to say it's Death, but I may be wrong.
It looks like Death. I mean,
and then she goes into this room, and there's all these guys that look like Angel and Archangel, and they're being experimented on. And apparently Magneto is behind all of it, and Magneto's in charge of this whole fiasco. And Psylocke wants to kill him, and Phantom X is there either to kill her or prevent her from killing him. I don't even understand, man. I literally don't understand what happened in this book. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, and we had the same problem with the last 2 issues. Is nobody knows what's going on in this book.
I mean, maybe when the whole thing is finished and it's in a trade paperback form, and I can go back and read all 4 or 5 or 6 issues of this fiasco, I can make sense out of it. But dude, I can't right now. I can't.
And you consider in the other X-Men book, you have them in the past in Egypt dealing with child Apocalypse, or Apocalypse before he's Apocalypse. I don't know how the two tie together. I don't know where this is going, or what we're doing, or what the point is. Right. You're right. I mean, maybe once it's collected and you can read it all as one thing, it'll make more sense. But right now, I have no idea what's going on.
None whatsoever. None. I mean, none.
Right. Can we get back to saving mutants and like he was doing a couple issues ago?
Yeah.
Can we get back to that?
Let's get back to the Earth, the 616 universe, because I'm over this book, man.
Yeah, me too, dude.
And it's very, I give up on, and I take a hard time, on Ant-Man number 9, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes, or, maybe the Nova number 8, which wasn't particularly good. I give those books a hard time. But usually with Marvel's main books, Iron Man, Amazing Spider-Man, the Avengers books, they do a good job with. But a couple of these books, they're just off the rails on. And this Uncanny book, the last couple of issues, they're off the rails, man. And I don't know what they're doing. So anyway, on to the 616 universe. Go ahead.
I was going to say that, while it's not a good book, I did like the banter between Psylocke and Phantom X.
I love these characters. I love Sabretooth. I love the mixture of these characters. It's got possibilities. I just don't.
The story doesn't make any
I've said
sense.
it before, and I'll said it before, and I'll say it again, man. I've been reading comics for 40 plus years, and if it's so complicated I can't figure it out, you've done made it too hard.
Yeah, exactly. So vote Loki number 1.
Yep.
I feel like when this came out 6 months ago, it was a nice little tongue-in-cheek poke at the general election. Reading it now is just like a kick in the nuts.
Oh my Lord.
So basically what happens is it funny?
I was thinking, I was laying in bed at my parents' house over the holidays, over Christmas, reading it. And I was thinking, my first thought was, oh God, he's at one of the debates, which is where the book opens. The two candidates, Trump and Hillary are having a debate, and Loki's there,
right.
And Loki's like, I'm good at lying, but these people are pretty good too. And I'm paraphrasing, of course, and I'm just reading that, thinking, yeah, and about halfway through the book, I'm thinking, I'd probably vote for Loki because at least I would know he's lying, and he's lying to my face. Okay,
Well, that's the whole thing in the book is, that's what Loki says. He's like, at least I'm lying to you.
Yes.
And the people, there are panels in the book where you see average citizens going, yeah, this sounds great.
Yeah.
It's better than these other two.
Yes. I think somewhere like in late October or early November, if Loki had been an option, we might have all voted for him. Good Lord.
Okay, to give you a synopsis, Loki's laying low.
Save us.
Loki's laying low, and he's impersonating a reporter covering the election. Well, turns out there was a bunch of impersonators at this debate, and they all turned out to be Hydra agents, and he stops them all. So he's just like, hey, I'm not gonna let this happen. That, of course, gets on camera. Now everybody's like, Loki, are you a hero now? Are you a good guy? And then he goes on a spiel about, like you just said, the two candidates. And he's like, well, at least I'd lie to you to your face. And then you see reactions of average citizens saying, yeah, we kind of like this guy. And then Loki's like, I'm not running for president. And they keep having him on talk shows, and they keep putting him in front of a microphone. And finally he says, you know what? I'm considering it. And he's putting a team together, and I can't tell if I like this book or if I hate it. I don't, because they're basically turning Loki into the Donald Trump figure. Hey, all these politicians are all idiots and liars, so vote for me. At least I'll tell it to you straight or whatever. And
I was kind of on the fence until Thor showed up at the end. And when Thor showed up at the end, I was like, okay, somebody's calling him on his lies, and this will be good for the next issue. So that was kind of a saving grace, because there was a reporter who wrote a story, and she caught him on his lies. And then she wakes up the next morning, and the story that she wrote isn't the story that she wrote. It had been twisted into something positive about Loki instead of exposing his lies. And next thing she knows, Thor is politely knocking on her door saying, hey, what have you done?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll keep reading it, but man, I don't know if I'm going to like it. I don't know how I feel about this. And I try not to get political on the show, but
dude, I don't feel good about anything politically right now.
No. So let's move on to Black Widow number 4.
There you go.
Give us a brief synopsis of this book.
Black Widow was stabbed in the last issue. Turns out she was stabbed by the new trainee of the new Red Room. And she needs somewhere to heal. So she goes to the house of one of her former instructors. And he's still alive. He's very old, but he's still alive. And he manages to heal her. And they discuss where the new Red Room is and who's training them and what they're for. And as he's doing this, I'm kind of repositioning something here. As he's doing this, they discuss how hard it is to get into and what it will take to do it. And she begins to get ready to attack the new Red Room.
Which the Red Room, by the way, is the institution where she was trained as a Soviet spy.
Yes, I'm assuming everyone's seen it in the movies and in the comic books and knows what it is. Yes, that's where she was trained, and that's where they trained the Russian. It's even in if you've seen the movie The Americans, or excuse me, not the movie, the TV show The Americans. Very good TV show. It's in it also, and it's in it also, and.
Uh-oh.
I'm trying to remember how this ends.
Do we need to reboot you?
No. I'm good. Another concussion doesn't affect me. I'm trying to remember how this ends because I don't remember how it ended. Do you?
Yeah. The new trainee and not Scarlet Witch.
Black Widow.
Black Widow. Yeah, Black Widow go toe to toe.
But where do they fly off to?
Yeah, we don't get an end to that outcome. Or actually, she leaves with the files she needs and meets up with her contact, who she's working for. They spar a little bit, but they don't. Something about Natasha's injured, so it wouldn't be a real fight, so they let her leave. I don't know, but she meets up with her contact. Let her leave,
and she's sitting in a cafe somewhere. And there's a guy coming to meet her, and he looks serious, and Natasha looks serious, and I don't understand what's happening.
We'll find out in the next issue. I tell you what, like man.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No.
The art in this book is really good. I'm particularly enjoying the bits where there's no dialogue, and they just let the artist tell the story through the art. It's so that's real talent when you can just draw and you let the pictures tell the story. I'm really enjoying the art in this book.
Yeah, it's I was confused because it had been a while since I read these books, and understand you and I consume a lot of books. It's 15 to 22, 23 books that come out a week. Sometimes we read them early in the week. We might have read a book 7 or 8 days ago. Obviously, we can't reread them all right before the podcast. So, we kind of scramble. A lot of times while one of us is talking, the other is previewing the next book. So I forgot how the thing ended is what happened. And I couldn't remember why she was. I'm like, why is she on the airplane flying somewhere? And who's that dude she's meeting? My brain kind of sputtered for a moment. So anyway, but it's a great book. I'm really enjoying it. And on to International Iron Man number 4, where we continue the mental breakdown of Tony Stark.
Yeah. He's still dealing with the whole parent thing. He's still trying to figure out who his real parents are. He's still dealing with what's her name? The spy lady.
Okay.
They're still having that discussion in the bathroom.
By the way, let's jump around here because this gets complicated because this book begins after the Cosmic Destroyer event in Civil War. So this begins after Civil War has begun.
Really?
Yes. Look at page 3, and if you look at page 3, that's where it begins when his head is on the table. and he's asking Friday to tell him about his parents.
Page 3 is him in Bulgaria, but okay.
Page 3 of 19. So many questions are unanswered about yesterday's verticosmic events. Eyewitness reports, numerous amateur videos, Captain Marvel, Iron Man working in tandem, what seems to be just about the entire superhero community.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so this happens in the 3 weeks between them taking down the Celestial Destroyer and Civil War beginning.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Actually, that makes sense.
Yeah. As I said, it's the continuing mental breakdown of Tony Stark.
Yeah. And if you haven't been paying attention to this story, you'll have to go back and read the other issues. You can't really jump in here. But yeah, Tony Stark's having a mental breakdown. He's trying to talk to this lady about who his parents are. It's kind of like this whole story has been like a James Bond movie.
Yes. So it begins by asking Friday who his parents are, and that's Nell, and she gives him all the records. All the records lead him to Bulgaria, to an orphanage in Bulgaria, where he speaks to a very nice lady who barely speaks English, who gives him hard copies of all the records, and turns out they're not there. And then we back up to 20 years ago, where he's talking to, what's the young lady's name? Cassandra.
Cassandra, yeah.
And they're getting off the boat, and she's explaining that she really does love him, even though they met during a honeypot. And at that point, they're attacked by Hydra agents. Well, actually, S.H.I.E.L.D. shows up with his dad, and his dad starts, calling Cassandra bad names. S.H.I.E.L.D.'s there, Dum Dugan's there. Then the Hydra agents attack, and it's all bad, bullets flying everywhere. Then we skip back to what is apparently today. So I guess that was 1 week ago, leads to today, which is, I guess, 2 weeks before he completely snaps. And he's confronting Cassandra now, and he never followed up to see if she actually survived that Hydra attack. So we're back to where this all began, with Tony sitting on the toilet, confronting Cassandra. And
not sitting on a toilet in that way. He's just using it as a seat because that's the safest place for them to talk in the mansion.
He's sitting on the toilet. He's got his pants pulled up.
Yeah,
he's sitting on the toilet.
Yeah, he's not actively using the toilet while talking to this lady about his parentage, which would be super weird.
Okay. So anyway, 20 years have gone by, and he hasn't bothered looking to see if she was still alive. So they begin discussing his parents. She refused to give the answers. Her armored soldiers are on the way to get Tony, and I think they're still in love, and she wants to call off the armored soldiers, but she can't do it because it'll ruin her reputation. And that's kind of where we leave it.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Yeah, like I said, if you haven't been paying attention to this book, you just have to go back and read the other 4 issues, or other 3 issues.
All 4 issues of this have been very good. It is very good. Yeah. What I assume this is going to do is going to run for 6 issues and then reboot after Secret Wars with.
Oh, I'm sure.
Well, yeah. And you and I know how it's going to reboot, but it's going to reboot, and this will, yeah, it's a good book.
Right. You know what's not a good book? Guardians of Infinity.
Good Lord, man. You know what? I didn't even care about usually the backup story is good. I read like the first 2 panels of the backup story, and I was like, what is this? And just started flipping pages thinking, is this, and I didn't even read the backup story, man. And I'm like, how many issues now have they been trying to escape the space station?
7 issues. This is number 7.
No, they spent the first issues finding it, maybe the second issue getting captured. So they're probably on issue 5 of trying to get free.
Yeah. And
I
this
mean, 5 issues of Vance Astro trying to tell somebody telepathically how to pick a lock. Okay, that's all I gotta say. That's it. That's all you need to know about the issue.
yeah, I mean, crazy spaceman covered in brains is crazy. Rocket Raccoon is French now. Just wake me up when this is over.
That's it. That's all you need to know.
Yeah. The backup story I felt was actually a lot better. It's basically the origins of the Guardian of the Galaxy.
Okay, whatever.
All right. Yeah, and it was okay. It wasn't great. It was okay. But the main story for Guardians of Infinity, man, this book is on the verge of being tossed overboard where I'm just going to stop reading it.
I feel an obligation to read every book so we can at least talk about it. I can at least know what's going on in the book, so you and I can at least have some form of banner about it.
So do I. I try to read everything, even if I'm not necessarily interested in it.
But at some point, we're just going to say a book sucks so bad, we're going to stop doing it. I don't know when, but this one is getting precariously close.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, it just is.
And it's not that the characters are bad. It's not that the writing is necessarily bad. It's just the story's bad.
It's the Guardians of the Galaxy. They had a hit movie 2 years ago. I saw the trailers for the next movie. Everybody in the theater burst out laughing. It's almost a guaranteed $300-400 million domestically. How can you screw these characters up?
I don't know. They're doing it with that Rocket Raccoon and Groot book too, which I think got canceled. We haven't seen it in a few weeks.
Again, we can only hope.
Yeah, because it's bad too. Yeah, they're screwing these characters up. And the same thing with his Ant-Man book. They're screwing these characters up, and it's bad. And they should feel bad.
They should. They should, man.
They really should. What's actually really good, well, it's pretty good. The Squadron Supreme book's been really good.
Yes. Yes, it has.
And you've got kind of like an A and B story going on here. Your A story is is it Phasma? No.
Spectrum. Dr. Spectrum.
Phasma's the lady stormtrooper from Star Wars. Dr. Spectrum has been investigating this underwater base for Inhumans and runs across both Toro, who I didn't even know was still alive, and Black Bolt.
I certainly didn't know he was an Inhuman.
Yeah, apparently everybody's an Inhuman these days.
Yeah.
Last I heard, he was an android, but whatever. Sure.
No, I think the original Human Torch was an android. I never knew what Toro was, and apparently he's an Inhuman. Whatever.
Sure. They destroy that base, and really it leads to Dr. Spectrum. She gets, through Toro, she gets confirmation from Black Bolt that, yes, if you come seek me out in New Attilan, I will answer your questions. And if for those who aren't familiar, back during the incursion events, which brought the Squadron Supreme here, Black Bolt spared her life specifically. So she goes back to New Attilan and starts asking Black Bolt questions. And they basically find out that she's the equivalent of an Inhuman from her world, from her universe. Or at best guess, that's what she is. So everybody's an Inhuman. Well, mostly. But yeah, the prism that she uses for her powers is connected to the Kree and may be what would be equivalent to Inhuman technology from her universe, which I thought was actually pretty cool.
Yes.
Then you've got the Beast story, which is this Kyle Richmond story. He's fighting himself. You've got Kyle Richmond from the other Earth who is calling himself what? Raymond something else now.
Raymond Kane, I believe.
Raymond Kane. The original Kyle Richmond shows up and they go toe to toe. Doesn't like having his identity stolen. When Nighthawk just throws the dude onto some spikes.
Not intentionally.
Not intentionally. It just happens that way. And we get a little reveal. Turns out Kyle Richmond's, a couple issues ago, you said, "Oh, I thought Kyle Richmond was dead." Well, apparently he is, because this Kyle Richmond was a Skrull. So not everybody's an Inhuman. This one guy was a Skrull. Everyone else is an Inhuman, but this guy's a Skrull. And it links somehow to Warrior Woman. I wasn't sure exactly how they came to that knowledge. I understood how, but I don't know where the connection is between a Skrull and Warrior Woman. But apparently there is, and that's who they're going to go deal with in the next issue.
Yes. My app just decided not to load that book, so I kind of lost the end of it there, but yes, I'm with you.
Yeah. I've enjoyed it so far. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good book, Squadron Supreme.
Yes. We're going to do the Uncanny Inhumans number 10, and then I missed a book that I was just looking at. It's the other Inhuman book.
I was going to say I didn't see it.
I missed it. So we'll do the Uncanny Inhumans and we'll do the other Inhuman book. This Uncanny Inhumans number 10 is interesting because it's about Reader. It basically focuses on Reader and Trest. And Reader is out to get his dog back. Is always very cagey about how his powers work. And what happens is he and Trest get captured. And what he does is he has this little piece of paper that he reads in Braille on. And they take that away from him thinking he can't read. So what he does is blood drips on the floor and there's drops of blood there. And he looks at them. Actually, I take that back. He doesn't look at them because he's blind. He reaches down and feels them. And as he feels them, he knows what's going to happen. And then he backs up in time and keeps it from happening because he knew what was going to happen. So he went back in time, prevented it all with pre-knowledge. And when Trest gets there, it's just like, oh, okay, everything did work out and we beat the bad guys and let's get the dog go home.
He actually does it multiple times.
Yeah, to make it work.
Right. Which you get the idea that when he does that from his inner monologue that he could really screw some things up because you're playing with time.
Right.
But he does it just to save his dog.
Right. And he doesn't do it often, and he doesn't tell anyone how it works because he doesn't, it's such a tricky thing that he doesn't tell anyone how it works. He doesn't tell anyone how his power works, and he doesn't tell anyone what he's really doing because he doesn't want anyone to know what he's doing.
Right. Yeah, I really enjoyed this book. It was a nice little self-contained story. It has implications for the next issue. Charles Soule's writing it. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, and what they're doing here, we spent the last two issues examining the Human Torch and Medusa's relationship. In this one, we examined his... we examined him going after his dog and his powers. They're killing time until IVX. That's all they're doing.
Yeah, they're just telling Inhuman stories issue by issue,
which is fine. I mean, they're fleshing out the characters.
Absolutely.
They're fleshing out the characters. Same thing they're doing here in All New Inhumans. They're fleshing them out. That's fine. So it's cool. Which brings us to All New Inhumans number 8.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to tell us what happened here?
They're still in the city, the hidden city of, is it Utolan?
I think so. Yes.
Sure. I don't know why they're there exactly, except one of the Inhuman kids is from there originally.
Yeah. He was looking for his mother.
That's right.
He was looking
Yeah,
for his
this whole
mother and found a mother and a bitter sister.
yeah. This their whole culture. So this is another city like New Attilan where the Inhumans sequestered after they were just left here on Earth by the Kree. But in their culture, it's different from the other, like New Attilan. Not everybody goes through Terrigenesis, or if they do, it's kind of this sacred process. But they stay out of the outside world. They keep to themselves. They're almost a very shamanistic like culture, and they're having some difficulty adapting to that. So I don't know who this blonde girl is, but she breaks into one of the places she's not supposed to go.
Yeah, she doesn't trust him very much.
No. And I'm not sure what her goal is. This is another one of those stories that's a little off the rails. Like the Uncanny X-Men. I don't understand what the point is of being here other than biding time until IVX.
I think this is again, I think it's the same thing as the previous book. They're just developing characters. We're learning about Gorgon and his legs and how that wheelchair worked, and we're learning about this kid whose mother's there. You know, we're learning about everything here.
Yeah. I didn't realize he had hooves. Gorgon.
Yeah.
Yeah, had no idea. That's weird.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a hard time getting into the Inhuman books anyway. This book isn't helping with its storyline that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And that I just don't care about.
I'm with you.
Nova number 8. So I understand you didn't like this issue, probably because it's teenage problems. It's basically the after party after they defeat the Celestial Destructor. It's the after party at Tony's place from the perspective of Nova and the Young Avengers. Nova's.
Do you know how many times the reason I don't like this is how many times I've read this particular story is why I don't like it.
Yeah, no, I understand.
I mean, that's why I don't like it.
It's the predicament of the teenage superhero.
Yes. I mean, how many times did Peter Parker go through this? How many times did Darkhawk go through this? How many times did the original Richard Rider Nova go through this? How many times did Superboy go through this? How many times? And I could just keep going. Okay, I mean, all the Teen Titans, every Teenage X-Man. You know, I mean, how many times did every one of the teenage heroes have an issue like this? So how many times have I read this story where they're at a party or at an event with all the other heroes and they're isolated and they feel like everyone's laughing at them and they don't fit in?
Right, which is what happens.
And I just capsulated the book for you.
Well, there's also a scene where his mother, he's coming in late at night, and his mother's like, "Yeah, you've got to stop doing this," and they get grounded because they get home late, either because their mother knows they're a hero or go ahead. I'm sorry. To me, I don't understand the mother's position here. I mean, she thinks that he needs to stop being a superhero because it's causing her to stay up late when that's her own problem. Well, apparently he just didn't drop a dime and call her and tell her he was okay. Yeah, I mean, that's on him, but like, I don't understand, and I do this in regular life too. When you have an individual who looks at a person like Nova, or even someone who has a goal or something they're trying to do, and says, "You can't do this because it's causing me problems, that person is typically wrong.
Well, but you're not a you're not a parent, okay?
No.
Her point is after the event's over, before you go to the party, send me a text and tell me you're alive.
Right. Which he should have done, admittedly.
That's basically her point.
Yeah, but she's telling me he can't be a superhero anymore because he's coming home late at night and she doesn't know if he's going to come home alive. Which she needs to understand that his place in the world is far larger than she can understand.
Or better yet, with his powers, just zip home in about 2 minutes. Say, hey, I'm fine. Going to a party at Tony Stark's. Be back about midnight. Fly back to New York.
Right. Like, did he not take a shower between after a fight like that, you'd think they'd all want to go like take a shower and maybe sleep for a few hours.
Apparently not.
Yeah, apparently not. Anyway, yeah, then the Mole Man shows up. The end.
There you go.
And yeah, a Mole Man shows up at the end. I don't know why. Just does. But you know what? It was better than this Ant-Man book.
My God, this Ant-Man book and the Deadpool book. The Deadpool book was actually wasn't bad, but the Ant-Man book, dear God,
it's garbage.
Do we got to talk about the Ant-Man book? I mean, they're trying to save his daughter. They're trying to save his daughter. He's got all these B-team heroes. They're breaking into whatever the place is. His daughter's already captured. Then he gets captured. There you go.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. It's just, you've taken a character that should be more than this, and
you're ruining him.
Ruined him.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. You're just ruining him.
Yeah. The book is garbage, and I barely read it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Partially because we had so many books to read this week, but also, and I was pressed for time with the holiday, but also I just don't like this book. I don't like reading it. It's bad, and it should be canceled.
I can't imagine it won't be canceled soon.
I hope so. So go ahead and tell us about this Deadpool book.
Well, Deadpool begins with, what's his wife's name? Shakara?
Something like that.
Anyway, it begins with he and his wife seeing each other because they've been separated for a while. And then the celestial event happens, and he and his mercs for money, all six of them, five, Deadpool and five. No, six, I'm sorry. Go out and basically their own human rescue. They're saving humans while everybody else is fighting the celestial destroyer. So when the event's over, Deadpool is, of course, a hero. And Deadpool's invited to the party, and he gets +1, so he takes his wife. And everybody thinks Deadpool is the hero of the day, and he's lauded as such, including by J. Jonah Jameson. And the mercs are just kind of left standing there as in the shadow. And his +1's his wife, so he heads to Tony's party with his wife. And the mercs are just kind of sent back to the headquarters to, be the mercs. And they don't appreciate that very much. And Deadpool kind of talks to Ulysses, which doesn't go well. Meanwhile, the mercs are hanging out back at the crib, not getting paid. That doesn't go well. And then Cable shows up. Did you read this?
I skimmed it.
Cable shows up carrying literally millions of dollars in cash. And they're like, dude, you have cash? And he's like, well, yeah. And they're like, how do you do this? And he's like, well, what I do is expensive, so I get cash.
Yeah.
And they're like, how? And he's like, well, I travel in the past, make an investment, then come back in the future and cash it in.
Yeah. Which if I were a time traveler, I'd do that too.
He's like, it's not hard. It costs lots of money doing this. So this is what I do. Okay, we fired Deadpool and we want to work for you. He's like, Deadpool, that I don't want to be around. Okay. See ya. And that's how the book ends. That's literally how the book ends. And they plan on telling Deadpool that, and Cable doesn't want to be around when they do. There you go. Yeah, it was pretty funny. It wasn't the best Deadpool book ever, but the scenes with Cable were entertaining. Cable was what saved that book.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Otherwise, it really would have been terrible.
Yeah. Pause right here.
Yes.
I'm going to edit this out in a minute.
Okay.
My bladder's about to explode. I'll be right back.
All right. I'm going to go talk to Renee for a moment, and I'll be back. Okay. Yo.
All right, let's finish this on a strong note. I'm going to count it down. We'll go into and moving on to the Star Wars books, so I'll know where to edit it.
All right. Do you want to, before we start Star Wars books, you want to talk about Carrie Fisher?
Let's get into the book, and I'll take us there.
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
And moving on to the Star Wars books, we have Han Solo #1, which I really enjoyed, actually.
I thoroughly enjoyed this book. You have Princess Leia giving Han Solo a secret mission. He's supposed to pick up these. They're basically they're spy agents within the Empire, but lately they've been getting knocked off. And this probably goes back to, if you remember the annual issue that we read about a year ago, pardon me, and then a couple of issues ago in Star Wars, you dealt with one of the spies that kind of turned traitor on her. So his job is to go pick these spies up and get them out of the field. His cover for this is this super high profile race that happens annually or something like that. And flipping through this book right now, it has a little bit of a different feel to it with the recent passing of Carrie Fisher. It just has a little more gravity and weight to it than it did when I read it a few days ago.
Yeah, I don't. It just happened so suddenly that, and I was talking to my mom. Of course, my mom is 70 something, and apparently Eddie Fisher, her dad, had a heart condition also and died relatively young, I think in his 50s or early 60s, of a heart attack also. And apparently she inherited his heart condition, which I wasn't aware of. And my mom was telling me that in one of her lucid moments, I should say, she was telling me about his heart condition. And apparently she had the same condition.
Yeah, and I don't know if she was aware of. I assume she was aware of the condition. But it just caught up to her. She had that heart attack. We all kind of thought she'd pull out of it, but my guess is that. Well, I don't know what happened exactly, but she didn't. She didn't pull out of it, which is. I mean, she was only 60. It's not old,
dude. And then her mom had a stroke and died this afternoon.
What?
Really?
I totally missed that.
Debbie Reynolds, man. Her mom had a stroke this afternoon and passed away.
Probably from stress of this, if I had to guess.
I would imagine, yes.
Wow. Prayers go out to the Fisher family, man. That's rough.
It is. That's rough, man.
Yeah. Anyway, the book was good. It's going to continue to be good. You put an ego like Han Solo's in a room with a bunch of egotistical pilots, and it's entertaining.
I'll draw this back to a better note. Mark Brooks. There's two parts to art. Mark Brooks is a great artist, and I've never heard of Sonia Obach before. But she did the colors. I assume it's she did the colors on this. And between Brooks' art and Obach's colors, this book is magnificent because her colors add a flair to the art that just makes this thing look great. I mean, this thing looks magnificent. And
it's really good. It's really good.
It's both parts. It's his art and her color. Just make the thing. I mean, it's the shading. There's details there that are just really, really good, man. Really good. And there's some, if you go look at the alternate covers, there's some really good alternate covers there also.
Yeah. So I'm interested to see where this goes, particularly because of the ending, which I won't spoil. But yeah, man, it's going to be good.
Yeah. Which brings us to Star Wars number 20.
I enjoyed this too. Written by Jason Aaron, who we were discussing earlier, who's a local, or he doesn't live here now, but he's from around these parts, Jasper specifically, and frequents our local comic book shop, or I guess it's my local comic book shop now. But
yes,
yeah,
and I just happened to be passing through and literally just jumped in there today.
Yeah. And I knew he was in town because I saw his tweets about he was tweeting about being back in the South and enjoying it. But so we're starting a new story here from the Journals of Old Ben Kenobi.
Was that a one shot?
I hope not, because I like this.
And see, this always confuses me because they do, and you can explain the time better than I do, but they do books in different time parts of the Star Wars periods.
Yeah, this main Star Wars book has mostly been in between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. In fact, all of these books, for the most part, have been in between those two.
Okay, but this one backs up like 20 years to when Luke was a kid. Probably 15. Okay, 12 maybe.
Yeah, something like he's about 10 years old in this story.
Right.
But it's told from the perspective of Obi-Wan Kenobi in the middle of his exile on Tatooine. Luke runs away from home, runs into trouble. Or rather, his aunt and uncle run into trouble when these bounty hunters show up. I'm not sure why they're hassling Uncle Ben and Aunt Beru. But
I think they were
anyway.
just in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Anyway, Obi-Wan Kenobi comes to the rescue, and he's fighting. I can't pronounce this dude's name, but he's a big, giant, intimidating Wookiee bounty hunter. And through a series of events, they go toe to toe with each other. Obi-Wan Kenobi attempts to save the life of Uncle Ben, fails to do so, but Luke Skywalker shows up and saves the day with his piloting skills. Yeah, and it's just it's a quick little story about Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan running across each other during the exile, during the time between trilogies. Which, you know, we know they had run across each other a few times before Obi-Wan Kenobi took him under his wing in The New Hope. But yeah, man, it was good.
Yeah,
I kind of hope we get a few more of these.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
I would like a whole series of this is what Obi-Wan Kenobi did while he was just living in the desert for 20 years. I would like a book about that.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. So solid issue.
Yeah.
That's all the books for this week. What was your favorite?
That's a very good question. Let me review.
Mega Man.
Let me review the list real quick, because I immediately want to say Civil War #2, but you know, Spider-Gwen #9 was good. That International Iron Man was good. Civil War #2.
Okay. I'm actually going to do Civil War X-Men because it surprised me. I didn't think I'd enjoy it as much as I did.
And
I'm also really interested in who's creating those Sentinels.
And I will say this, and I don't, even though I read ahead, I very seldom give spoilers. I try not to you or not to anyone. Issue #2 of this Civil War series is the slowest issue of the series. Mm-hmm. And after #2, with issue #3, this thing takes off and just runs at a horrific pace through the rest of the 5 issues. Now, the issues don't come quickly, but as they come, the story is moving at a very, very fast pace.
Yeah, it's going to pick up quite a bit from here on out.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's see.
What was in
the this week?
You had the Spider-Woman series. Spider-Woman #1 has been there, but they dumped it's not in front of me, but they dumped like 20 books from that late 70s Spider-Woman series. They dumped the Nick Fury series from the late 80s, early 90s. They dumped about 20, 30 issues of that. And the main thing they dumped, and this is in the dump, and it's also our classic read of the week, is a series called Nick Fury vs. S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, there's several reasons this series is interesting and why it's our classic read of the week. It kind of in the late 70s, early 80s, they ran out of ideals of what to do with Nick Fury. The whole spy thing kind of fizzled out. The Bond movies weren't doing well. They had Roger Moore playing Bond in the movies, and that wasn't going well. Yeah. They went from Moore to Timothy Dalton, and that kind of didn't go well.
No.
And they didn't have anybody who knew what to do with Nick Fury. And they came up with this Nick Fury vs. S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, this is a 6-issue series, and each one of these issues, without ads, without anything, is 48 pages. This thing is, each one is basically a trade paperback, and there are 6 of them. That's how big these issues are. They've got Jim Steranko doing the covers, who did the covers back in the 60s or late 60s, early 70s. Who did the Fury covers late 60s, early 70s. The covers are magnificent. The art inside them is magnificent. A lot of what you see in Shield now, like issue number 1 is the first time you see the World Security Council, you know, like you see in the first Avengers movie where Samuel L. Jackson is arguing with the guys up on the screen. That came from Nick Fury versus Shield number 1. So a lot of what you see in the movies came from what they did in this Nick Fury versus Shield series. This is a classic series, and I'm really glad to see that they're getting stuff like this on Unlimited. It's a great series, man. It really is. And I'm if you have time to read 6 pages at 48 6 books at 48 pages. What is that? Nearly 275 pages. If you got time to read 275 pages of comics, it's a great series. It really is.
Yeah, check it out. It's classic Nick Fury for real.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you really get the definition of who Nick Fury is as a character in these books.
And they did such a good job of rebooting it that's when they came up with that Nick Fury Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. series that went through the late 80s and ran for 50 or 60 issues through the mid 90s, early 90s. I mean, that's how good it was.
Cool. Yeah, check that out. That pretty much wraps up all the books this week. If you want to check out our website, it's 6monthsbehind.com, sixmonthsbehind.com. Hit us up at email on our email, 6monthsbehind@gmail.com. That's the number 6 months behind at gmail.com. Pat, do you have any wisdom for our true believers this week?
Patience and self-control is the only way to survive in the world of idiots.
I think that's good advice going forward. We'll see you all next week.
Peace.